Thank you, Doreen, for that. Always keeping us up to date in terms of what we need to know about our roads this morning. Traffic Marshal A1, and that ushers us into this family conversation for today. And as mentioned earlier on, this is a sensitive discussion for that matter. We welcome you to be part of this, but just to put a disclaimer, this discussion is not meant to discriminate or to be a point of reference when it comes to some of these issues that we're going to be discussing. This is meant to be an informative session, and this is all about domestic violence in line with sexual and gender-based violence. This is something that in the past year or so has been catalyzed by up to 92% as per what statistics have had to indicate. And today this is what we want to talk about. Domestic violence in the Kenyan space. It is something that so many people have experienced in silence, but only recently we have seen more and more cases being reported around domestic violence. Now, according to statistics, 40% of married women have reported domestic violence, and a further collectively 62% of domestic violence cases are usually perpetrated by the partner that the victim is reporting, the partner they are currently with, or an immediate ex-partner. Why is this the situation? That is what we want to understand today. And with me in studio, we have two women. I'll start with the lady to my immediate left. She is Anastasia Kihwaga, who is a marriage counseling psychologist. Good morning, Daktari.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us again.
Yes.
We always appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you once again. My name is Anastasia Kihwaga. I'm a counselor psychologist. I'm also married, and I'm also a pastor.
We'll be tapping into all those hats today. And of course, to my extreme left, we also have Joan Aluse, who is a teacher by profession, and she has willingly been accepted to be part of this conversation to share with us her journey, given she has been in such a situation before. Good morning, Joan.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being brave enough and allowing us to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, again, questions, comments, clarifications, anything in regards to this conversation, we welcome you to be with it, to be with us rather. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya at KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle. My handle is Jain Wambui across all the social media platforms. Doc, are you on the socials?
Yes.
How can our viewers get to interact with you?
My social media is Equip Destiny Anastasia Kihwaga. I also have a Twitter handle also called Anastasia Kihwaga Equip Destiny.
All right.
And I am also in Instagram, Anastasia Kihwaga Equip Destinies.
All right. Yes. Do you have a social handle you'd like to share?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm on Facebook, and I'm Joan Aluse. And on Instagram, still Joan Aluse.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Joan Aluse is how you can be able to interact with her on a personal level. Now, let's just start by getting to hear from you, Joan, to sort of set the foundation for this discussion. Domestic violence is something that, for most, if you haven't interacted with it, you might not really understand what it entails. But tell us a bit about your experience in such a space.
Yeah, the way you have heard, I was married for around 14 years. I was just about to go for 15th year, but in most cases I had a marriage that was that had ups and downs, and in most cases we used to have this domestic violence on a regular basis, and sometimes we go for counseling with the parents, we go for counseling with the pastors, because I was married to a pastor, and in most cases these things never used to work so well for us until the latter, when I decided to move out of marriage. What happened on that eve night, I remember that day I was very tired coming from school, and when I came back home I was so tired, and I decided to go do my domestic work as usual. And as I did them in the evening, it was around 7 when the man that came to the house. And when he came to the house, he knocked at the door using his feet, And I realized that there must be something wrong. It wasn't normal. Okay, on a normal day, he knocked the door using his hand. But on a day that means there is something wrong, he used to knock the door using his feet. And I decided, okay, because he has knocked using his feet, I'm not going to open the door. I sent my younger daughter to go and open the door. And when the daughter opened the door, he came in and slept on the couch. And coming from the kitchen, I went, talked to him, and because we were making some supper, he never used to take rice and green grams in the evening. He preferred taking ugali and some stuff more than taking rice. So I asked him for only 50 shillings, and he told me that he had already pre-warned me of not asking him for money to use it for domestic use. Yeah. So when he told me not to ask him, I decided to go out. And then when I went out, I remembered I had some money on my phone. I went to the M-Pesa agent, and the M-Pesa agent gave me 2,000 shillings. 2,000 shillings note. And when he gave me the 2,000 shillings note, I came back to the shop where I was to buy the flour. And when I was standing there, the shopkeeper didn't have change. So the shopkeeper went round looking for change. So in that, during that time, I took some time at the shop. And when I came back, that was the first mistake that I had done. That he is in the house and I've taken long outside. So I came in, prepared food for him. I had bought milk. And he took the milk, gave it to the children, and he only took ugali with the vegetables. And then he went to sleep. After sleeping, I had carried liquid soap. So I decided to make the soap, and the soap was too foamy, and the water, the measurement that I had put was too little. So I decided that the foam should go down so that I may add more water. And when I did that, as I was waiting, he came back from the bedroom and he banged the bedroom door. So I woke up from the seat where I was, picked the phone on my chair where I was, and tried to press it so that I may know what was the time. And when I pressed it, that was the second mistake. So I prepared myself and went back to bed. As I was on the bed, that is when he picked me up using my night dress and told me, you have to tell me, where were you during the time you went to the shop? And then secondly, I'm sleeping and you are chatting with the people on phone. So I decided, I told him, no, kuja pole pole. I thought it was just a joke. So the man jumped out of the bed, went, picked the scissors, and he wanted to stab me. So what helped me during that night is the net, because we had put the net on our bed around it. So when he was trying to pull the net, and I was busy trying to press the net so that it may not open up for him to stab me. So in that process, I was yelling. Then my daughter came from the bedroom. That's when she came and tried to knock at the door, telling him that he will not kill the mother, he's not ready, she's not ready to remain an orphan. That is how he started now hitting me on the wall, trying to hit me hard. And my mandible jawbone was broken, and my face was swollen all over, and I had to go to the hospital at Nairobi Hospital. I was referred by our sister Diana Kamande. I called her and told her what I had gone through. So she referred me to another doctor in Nairobi Hospital. That is where I was taken, and I had to go for a series of counseling and a series of psychological help and all that. But it wasn't good from the word go, because we had issues from the word go. And I remember there are times that I had to go spend nights at his place, at his mother's place, spend the night in my parents' place. I remember there is a night that I woke out naked, and I had to wear wet clothes on my way, and I had to travel with wet clothes back to the rural area. So that was part of my journey.
Wow. Again, this is why I say you might not really understand the extent to which domestic violence really manifests itself until you're in such a situation. But now let me come to you, Doc. You know, we talk about domestic violence, and again, for some, we might not understand until, unfortunately, you get to experience it. But from a medical standing, what does domestic violence really capture?
Yes, thank you very much, Wambui and Joan. Domestic violence, it's the behavior. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, it can also be spiritual. It's happening in the church. It can also a behavior that, like, it's not, you don't get the concept of the person, but you like manipulate them, you also control them. However, some of the things that happens in domestic violence, some of them, they are really triggered by the culture.
Yes.
Others are spiritual, because if you're in the church, you're not supposed to talk about it. How? Like for the case of Joan.
Yeah.
And then if the culture does not allow, the woman is not supposed to talk. And I'm not saying that domestic violence does not only occur to the women. It's also, men are also affected. Therefore, we are not discriminating, as you said there before. However, the more people who are affected by domestic violence, they're women.
Yes.
Why? Because the vulnerability of a woman. And we are in African culture whereby a woman, the voice of a woman is not really to be heard, but you're supposed to be seen. So therefore, you're supposed to act like it's okay. And sometimes some of the women or some of the people, they get used to violence. Because it's like, I would like to, like Joan, the way she has said, like the people who get married at the age of 18, early, and there are even people who get married immediately after the adolescent stage, depending on the culture. Yes. These are people who are very young. They don't even understand what is my worth, and therefore you get used to it. As opposed to somebody who is a bit young after 24, whereby I've already realized that this is what I want. I'm entering into this. I am laying down my like in marriage. This we sit with my husband to be, and we go through premarital counseling, and I spell out my expectation. I also let them know, because even Kalia is making people to go through domestic violence because I'm above my husband, and because of the egoistic nature of men, they simply, I'm sorry to say this, they simply don't want to swallow their ego. It doesn't shock anyway, but they don't want to swallow their ego to say that you're going to work and you're the one earning more than the man, and instead of coming to the table and talking about it and dialogue about it, they feel like they are threatened. And because of that coward nature of human being, they feel the threat is too much, and sometimes they may think like, when I go out there and they remain behind, maybe I am being admired by other men, or something might be transpiring, and because of that insecurity, it can also cause domestic violence, and therefore it cuts across. When you are being abused, the abuse, as in somebody is insulting you every day, sometimes some of the young ladies or some women tend to think that whatever a man tells me, that is I perceive myself as the same, and my image is connected to that. Also in domestic violence, we have abusers and we have a cycle of abuse. Okay. And the cycle of abuse, there is a stage we call honeymoon stage, whereby things are okay, they will bring me flowers and you taken for a treat, then the tension starts building up. That is a cycle of abuse. Attention starts building up, then there is explosion. Things are not working out, and then you're abused. There is that stabbing, all that. And then after that, because abusers, they are very wise. They are enticing, they are charming, they again come back to you. You again go back to the cycle of honeymoon. So
it's a vicious cycle that keeps going round and round.
Yes.
Once it's complete, there's a sort of plateau period, and then it starts all over again. Now, let me come to you, Joan. Is this something that you can say is actually a fact, there's something that you can say, this is actually what was happening during that 14-year period you were in that relationship?
Yeah, like our sister Anastasia has just said, that's very true, because most of the time when we had issues of domestic violence, that is when we'll go back to that cycle where she's saying the honeymoon stage, and everybody that sees us, because we would walk around the village and we are all happy, and everybody would admire and say, this is the best family, you know. It happens, and then he sues the sue, and it's like there is nothing that has happened. It's like everything is okay. I remember there are times that we would go for the counseling, or we would go to ask some people for help, and immediately we ask people for help, like our best couple. Our best couple used to work so much. There are times that he would even sleep in our house together with the wife. There are several nights they've come, and immediately they come, he talks so nicely, and he pretends, and he says that he will never again do that. And the following day you find that we are now okay. It's like there is nothing that happened yesterday, and people would see our marriage was like it was one of the best. But the truth is, behind the bars, I was really affected. The second thing that she's talking about, the cultural issue. I'm a firstborn, and my mother used to tell me in most cases that firstborns don't leave their marriages. If you leave your marriage, it's like all the siblings.
And a curse that will follow the family.
So in most cases, I would persevere in this marriage because of that. The third thing is she's talking about the spiritual aspect of it.
And you had mentioned he was a pastor.
Yes, he's a pastor. That's where I'm coming. The spiritual part of it. He's a pastor, and here you are a pastor's wife. You can't just leave your marriage like that, because there are people that you have cancelled that needs more of your assistance. In fact, when members are in problem, they come to you. So most of the time when you are going through this, you don't show up, you don't tell people, this is what I'm going through. You will hide everything. But the truth is, inside the marriage, you are really suffering. Nobody knew what I was going through, because most of the time I would hide until I had to cough it out, because I saw my life now was in danger. Because not once nor twice had I been threatened. There is a time that you could say, I'm going to pour paraffin on this house and I'm going to burn all of you, and there were so many threats. But now, because you are a pastor, there are women who would take you for prayers. There are people who would tell you, let's pray over this issue, and then you cover it up and you don't show anybody, you don't tell anybody this is what I've been going through. But inside, behind the closed bars, it was fire.
Now, let me just bring you in at that point, Doc, and looking at some of the things that she's just said, you know, this verbal threats. And I want us to talk a bit about those signs of an abusive partner that we might not really be alive to, but actually these are tell signs that further damage if you are somebody in that situation. And she's just mentioned she's mentioned something about the threats that are being verbally articulated. Is this something that we need to take with the seriousness that it comes with when a partner is threatening to harm you in as much as they haven't actually done it?
I want to say the emotional abuse in violence, it causes a lot of mental issues, and there is something we call gaslighting. And gaslighting is whereby you victimize the victim. You know, the abuser victimizes the victim with the words, like they will keep on criticizing you, whatever you do. It starts with the meal, it starts with the how, I mean, you work late and all that. Those were the words that are very demeaning, and they criticize you, and you feel almost you're shelved and cocooned. And that way, they also use words to keep your friends away. You know, when the abuser keeps the friends away, you never talk about it. When again they keep you away from the relatives, I don't know your case, Joan. They keep you away from the relatives. You're not supposed to be very close to the relatives. Why? Because there is something that is I'm trying to cover up something. Unfortunately, the person, the victim, never get to know what is happening, because the abuser, it's like it's a cover up, and this cover up continues.
They're trying to make sure everything is
and also in the church perspective, I'm very honest to say, in the spiritual perspective, people will go ahead using scriptures. Like a wife should be submissive, which is okay. We love the words but it's misused. Because at what point should a woman submit? Even when they're being kicked, even when they're being beaten, and even in the church perspective, I told you I'm a pastor.
Yes.
We share with nobody what I go through. We share, like in counseling, we say that every time I see 10 clients, I am the 10th client, because I need to go for supervision and I need to go for. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that in the church. So people will use scripture to maintain you in the violent circumstances, and those scriptures, sometimes they're also mentally, emotionally bringing you down. Also, words like verbal abuse, it's also an emotional abuse, because when somebody tells you, you're pretending because you're working, you're earning more than I am earning, and all that, those are demeaning words. And every time you wake up to go to the place of work and you have those demeaning words, how is your image? Somebody's not taking care of your image. You're coming here, Wambui, you're a presenter, and people want an image. The KBC want an image. However, you're hurting from inside. Nobody knows. It's mentally bogging you down. You're mentally being affected. Maybe you had sleepless night. Like you're a teacher, she had sleepless nights. You can imagine. She's the one we are taking the kids to go and take care of them. You can imagine somebody who is already emotionally broken from inside. It's a shell from inside.
So those words are something we need to be very attentive to.
Very true.
They are a sign of domestic violence in one form or the other.
Very true. They're the telltale sign
that you need
that things are not working out.
Now, one thing that I've also just researched is that you find in most situations the perpetrator tends to blame the victim for their actions.
Good.
Is that something that you can say you actually experienced?
Yeah, in most cases that is exactly what happened. That most of the time I am the cause for his action. Yes.
Oh,
even when I came from the hospital, why did you do this? Why did you cause me to hit you? Because I'm the one who caused him to hit me. Most of the time that is what he did. I want to refer back to what our sister Anastasia has just said. On the issue of separating you from friends, separating you from family members, separating you from congregation. You see, this is a case where we are together with him, and he would make sure that I'm not having other friends apart from him. So he is the one who is closer to me more than any other person. I'm not supposed to go to anybody's place or to any friend's house, because he knows very well that if I go there, then maybe there is something that I would speak about it. I remember there is a time that I could go. My rural area and his rural area is not far, but there is a day that I would go to his place and miss to go to my mother's place. Though I'm the one who has paid the fare to his place, but still I cannot go visit my parents. I remember there is also a day that I had to call my parents from my rural area to meet me in a central place, in a shopping center, where I could just see my mother, and then my mother goes back, which was not very far. And then this sign that she's saying that you find that because you are too close to this person, you are not talking to anybody, this person is going to make sure that now you don't have that circle that you are going to share with.
Okay.
So to me, these things happened, and I saw it wasn't really right the way our sister has just said it.
Now, due to the interest of time, it got to a point where you were able to get out of that situation.
Yes.
And I want to just very briefly, you could tell us what was the situation that enabled you to eventually gather the strength and the courage to pull yourself out of that situation. What steps did you take?
When I was in the hospital,
and how long ago was this, if you are comfortable to share?
Yeah, it was in the year 2015.
Okay.
So when I was in the hospital, I took 2 years, 2 weeks, I mean. And within the 2 weeks, I had counselors, and they started talking to me about what had transpired and how the life has been, to an extent that I've been hit to that extent. And I told them the whole story, how it began, and it was something that it was like a routine, a normal routine to be hit, because not once nor twice was I hit and taken to the hospital. There are times that I would go to Kariobangi, like Premium Hospital, they knew my case, and other hospitals that knew about my case, because I used to go to such hospital. But this time I went to Nairobi Hospital.
That was when you broke your jaw?
Yes, when I broke my jaw. So when I went to Nairobi Hospital, Nairobi Women's Hospital, that is when they started speaking to me. And after speaking to me, they told me I should decide if I am going to stay for the marriage or take care of my children. And they left the puzzle open for me to answer it. So when I was sleeping on the bed, I started thinking about all these things that had happened. So in my mind, I saw the future of my children, and I saw how things have been, because now this issue of violence has become now like a normal routine. It's like something that is happening on a regular basis. So when I came back to the house with that mind, and after counseling, he asked me, in fact I had bandages all over because I was induced for that because of the pain and all that. So I had them on my hands and everywhere. And he stood right before me and he asked me, why did you cause me to do this? And the pain came back to me. And I remembered, instead of him saying sorry, number two, I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks and he hasn't come to visit me. And still he's standing before me. It's like he wants to hit me again. And pain crawled in my heart. I just moved out of the house and went to look for a place where I could sleep. So when I was there, I was called at the children's department to come and see them at Kasarani. So when I went to the children's department, that is where he had reported that I went, and I am the one who was providing for the children, and because I was providing for the children, they should divide what I had by half. Then the officers who were there said that nothing was to be divided because my kids were too young. The last born was 2 years, so they couldn't divide. The younger boy needed me more, so they told him they are not going to say anything about division of anything unless if the boy has grown maturely where he can even make decisions. So that is how, when I saw that he had started moving to offices, I said, let us cool down, because it's like he is not having that heart of forgiving again. So during that time, as I was waiting, he had already married, he already had a family. So that is how I decided not to go back again, because he had already started his life.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Doc, as we also we have very less than 5 minutes to go,
okay.
When you are looking to leave an abusive relationship, what is the safety plan you need to create in order to ensure that you are going to be safe? Number two, if children are involved, as a mother or the father who's leaving that abusive relationship, you ensure the safety of the children as well, because again, it is your responsibility. Very briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Joan, for opening up. Number one, you have to be ready to face the consequences, because every choice has a consequences.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately for this one, you have to use an escape route, and sometimes you call it an escape bag, because you need to take a plan of action, and this one is an immediate plan of action, because it's either you leave when you're dead or you leave when you are alive, which is better. So for her, she escaped. So that was an escape. In fact, I am not sure that you ever took anything. But therefore, be ready to start somewhere. Another something else, please look for social support, because one of the things is that your ties, because of the controlling nature of the abuser, there is a lot of manipulation. The ties, the social ties, they are already disconnected. So you're wondering where to start from. And that is why people are remaining in abuse, because you're wondering, where will I start from? The world is so dark for you, and the night is too long for you, and you're wondering, where will I start from? I want to encourage people that you can start from somewhere. There are rescue centers, and it's better when you're getting out in a night dress than when you're getting out of that house in a casket. So I encourage people to seek also for psychological support. There are centers that offer psychological support, and I support Nairobi Women's, whereby seek for psychological psychological support. What does psychological support offers? It opens your inner ears. You're able to see things from a different perspective. You know, you trained, by the way, I'm honestly saying that the perpetrator, you've already trained the abuser to abuse you, because the more you stay, you get out, you come in, you get out, you come in. It's a cycle.
Even if you go,
yes, you will still come back. And that is why even after she went to the hospital and she came back home, she could still have been abused once again. Why? Because you train people how to treat you. Okay. And in this case, she had already been trained. I mean, the man has already been trained how to abuse him, abuse her. And therefore, the escape route is this: please take a plan of action, decide. And we use I use something when I'm doing psychology. I mean, when I'm counseling couples, I use something we call the step model. Ensure that you come up with a safe and respectful the step model. Come up, state your problem. This is what I'm going through. I'm under violence. Number 2, the T, you come up with, always explore the pros and cons. If I take this action, what are the consequences? However, it's better you take the action than staying there. Then we go to you also come up with a plan of action, and it's an immediate one. Yes. Because if you're dead and all your children are orphaned, and in his case, we're still building a vicious cycle, because after, even before he healed, he married somebody else. You can imagine the cycle continues. And I'm here to say, let's break the social stigma, because the culture, the church, and the community really stigmatize people when they come out of marriage. However, there are roots of seeking for help. Right. And thank you for bringing such a show whereby you're able to speak to the community about this, that it's okay to talk about your problem. You're not the first, neither are you the last.
Yes, they say there's nothing new under the sun, but there's always solution to a problem. And due to the constraint of time, again, we have to pause at this particular point. But again, this is not a discussion that we can exhaust in this one sitting. Of course, we're going to have subsequent discussions to just talk about this issue that has proven to be a national disaster and one that needs addressing. We have been speaking with Joan Aluse, who is a teacher by profession, also a willing speaker in regards to this particular discussion, sharing her experience. And we also have Anastasia Kihwaga, who is a counseling psychologist. Thank you so much, ladies, for making time to be with us today.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you again. All right. And on behalf of the crew, we want to wish you a lovely day. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this morning. Be sure to join us again tomorrow right here on Good Morning Kenya for another fantastic edition. I'm Jain Wambui. Have a lovely day.